So it is 7 o'clock. We'll begin the meeting by electing the chair for the year. So do I have any nominations for the role of chair?
I nominate Councillor Kelly.
Is that seconded?
I second Councillor Kelly.
Is that agreed? Thank you. Councillor Kelly, you can take the chair.
Thank you, members. And my first item of business is to, do we have a nomination? I'd like to nominate Councillor Busuttil as vice chair. Do we have a seconder?
Yes, I'd like to second that, Chair.
Is that agreed? Therefore, myself, Councillor Kelly, is appointed as chair, and Councillor Gary Busuttil is appointed as vice chair of Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Bit of housekeeping for members of the public, because it's the first meeting of the municipal term. We have to do that. So item number 3, apologies for absence and substitution. Mr. Bailey.
Yeah, we've had apologies from Councillors Mahfouz and Sanghera, and Councillors Ryan and Mahmood are present as substitute for those members.
Anything else from the floor? No, that's all well. Do we have any item number 4, do we have any declarations of interest? We have no declarations of interest. Item number 5, matters to be considered in private. We're not proposing to take any matters in private today, but we do have in the report exempted appendices which are sort of confidential and financially sensitive, and you know, if they're referred to, it sort of can compromise things going forward. So if we could all ensure that the proceedings take place in public, but if we are going to discuss the exempt information, we'll have to take those matters in private. So just people could, members could be aware of that, please. Thank you. So item number 6, we have the minutes of the meeting held on the 1st of April 2026. You'll have them in your bundle. Got pages, I've got 2 paginations here, but 1, 2, 3, 4 pages. Do we have meetings held on the 1st of April agreed as a correct record proceedings, preferably somebody that attended the meeting to confirm them?
Agreed.
Yeah, thank you very much, councillors. And that brings us to the first item of business, the call-in decision titled The Future of West Middlesex Golf Course. Again, reminding people that there's exempt appendices, and we're going to hear from the lead members who have called the items in, Councillors Hirsch and Gallant, and then we'll hear from a representative of the golf club. So do I need to read all this out first? No, fine, as it comes up. So Councillor Hirsch, up to 3 minutes. I'm not going to slam down if you go over 3 minutes, but if you could keep it to that, that'd be grateful. So if you just use your mic, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. It seems I should start with just some basic facts, which are not always clear. The West Middlesex Golf Club had financial difficulties and went into administration in 2019. Their debt was bought up by a developing company, JLR, in exchange for the majority voting rights and with them the control of the club. This company now wants to get their investment back, and the council wants to have their land back from the long lease with the club. The council administration has decided on a deal with this developer to exchange 2.27 acres of prime metropolitan open land in the middle of West Middlesex Golf Course in exchange for regaining the lease on the whole of the course. I'm sorry on behalf of all the golf players and genuine club members who were not consulted about these dealings, and their club seems to be financially viable now. If the deal goes through, the club will cease to exist. Amongst the reasons the opposition parties have questioned this decision is a lack of transparency around this deal. Giving away council land to a developer will sound to many like something of a dodgy deal, especially as many documents related to the case were not made public. Even after a review of these redacted papers by councillors, many questions have been left unanswered. Surely such a case should demand maximum openness and honesty in order not to fuel further speculations. One of the major objections is the fact that the council has not revealed any plans what it will do once the lease is back in its possession. It should be clear that such a major project would have been thought through beyond just the first step. It doesn't need much imagination to assume that the Labour-run council will integrate the golf course into the planned regional park. The course lies bang in the middle of this planned park, which is exactly what happened to Perivale Park Golf Course. The other arguments concern the legal action against the club about this the breach of the lease. We have no concrete facts, only statements. One of the sides says it could be costly to the council. The other side says maybe it has little chance of success. So what is actually the case? What is exactly the value of the land to be given away? And many other questions. We demand that the case is redirected back to Cabinet to have a fully transparent and honest report which puts all the cards on the table. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Gallant.
Thank you very much, Chair. And just to confirm that we're asking OSC to ask Cabinet to reconsider plans for the West Middlesex Golf Club, and refer to the call-in papers that you can see on the agenda. Some things we know, this is land that belongs to the council, to the people of Ealing, and ultimately the council will decide on its usage. We also know that Ealing Council is negotiating with Greenford Road Management, and Greenford Road Management are not to be criticised for seeking the most profitable outcome. But we also know the golf club is well maintained, functioning, and it serves a public interest too. People walk there and they don't routinely get hit by golf balls. And there is the cost thing to consider too. At present, the golf club pays for the upkeep of the land. That cost goes well into six figures, the public benefits. If the golf club goes, the council will have to assume these costs. And there are some of what I call surrealities too. Ealing has made much of its plans to build a regional park along the green areas next to the Brent River. Hence, it closed Perivale Park Golf Club, as my colleague has just said, and renamed the area Pear Tree Park. It's recently accepted a large grant from the GLA to build the regional park, and everyone I know of is in favour of the regional park. But no one is going to believe us as a council if we say that this is an entirely separate matter. In fact, the decision of Cabinet has had the undesirable effect of generating some seriously wild theories and speculations. It's also very hard to explain why Greenford Road Management stands to obtain metropolitan open land owned by Ealing for the price of a cup of tea. And it may be legally possible, but politically speaking, it looks odd. So we are where we are. I confess I'm less interested in apportioning blame for the past actions than getting a good decision. This is a matter of huge public interest. We are respectfully arguing that this decision should be backed by a wider consultation with the management of the golf club, ordinary golfers, and members of the general public, real people who use the area. The decision should be delayed until a lot more surrounding detail about intent of usage can be supplied, consistent with the council's much trumpeted desire to be transparent. Chair, Cabinet has taken a narrow decision which is generating uncertainty. We are arguing that Cabinet reconsider and take a widely informed decision which demonstrates a command of the whole thing and a solid direction of travel. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Gallant. I'd like to invite, I understand it's Mr. David Thomas, who is representing, I'm sure he'll introduce himself, the West Middlesex Golf Course, but by all means, you expand on who you are and what your role is here today. Well, and I'd just like to thank the members of the public gallery for their attention, presence, and attention here today. Thank you.
There you go, there you go. Excellent. So my name, perfect. So I'm David Thomas. I'm a resident of Ealing. I play frequently at the golf club. I'm not a member. I've got 3 young kids. I wouldn't be thanked for joining. If they were a bit older, I would be a member. And I'm speaking here today on behalf of playing members of the golf club and of members of the community who use the course. This is the first time that anyone from that constituency has been invited to speak in relation to these proposals. That community wants to find a constructive solution here and remains open to speaking. However, what is clear is that the proposal that is in front of you, and which you are, I think, seeking to ratify, is not that proposal. Councillor Gallant said a moment ago that it may be that this deal is legally permissible. The point I want to draw attention to now is that it isn't. There are many other points and objections that we make in respect of this proposal and which further scrutiny will draw out. But the primary one that I wish to make now, and which is supported by documents that have been submitted to the Council, is that the deal that is in front of you is not capable of legal execution. The point for the Council, and this is really of importance, I think, for the group here, is that if this proceeds on this basis, it has opened up to litigation, a really quite significant, long drawn-out litigation, I suspect. There's a matter of really quite significant complexity, and I think we, on behalf of the golf club, and hopefully everyone on behalf of the council, and also myself as a ratepayer, hope that that can be avoided. So the starting point here is, and I'm not sure if people have these notes, but they have been circulated to Democratic Services. The starting point here is the article of the Association of the Golf Club itself. I've got copies if people want to see them. It may assist if I pass them around.
I'm afraid it wouldn't be fair on members to examine them now and comment on them. You know, it's not enough sort of sight of them. They wouldn't be able to make any meaningful comment on them.
Well, I can talk to the content of them fairly quickly, and I would suggest that people then go away and look at them because this is of material importance.
No problem. Thank you. Yeah, and you reclaim your time, so carry on. Sir.
Thank you. Yeah. So the club is governed by the Articles of Association, by its Article of Association, and the club is a signatory to the tripartite deal. This deal can only proceed if West Middlesex Golf Club Limited surrenders the lease. GRL, the party which seeks to profit from this deal by obtaining the parcel of land, something which is referred to in the note that I've circulated to you as the GRL parcel, is a member of the club. It is also governed by the Articles of Association of the Golf Club. Article 2.2 of the Golf Club's Articles of Association, which again binds GRL, the directors of the golf club and the golf club itself, provides as follows. The income and property of the club shall be applied solely towards promoting the club's objects as set forth in this Article 2, and no portion thereof shall be paid or transferred directly or indirectly to the members. Section 171 of the Companies Act makes it clear that no director of a company may act in breach of the Articles of Association of that company. The tripartite agreement breaches Article 2.2 of the Articles of Association of the company. GRL gets an option to a portion of land which is currently controlled by the golf club. That is, as matters stand, property of the golf club. GRL is a member of the golf club. It is precluded from receiving that property by Article 2.2. The directors of the golf club are precluded from signing an agreement that disposes of that interest by Section 171 of the Companies Act. So where does that get us? Where it gets us is if that is done and it's purported to be executed on behalf of the golf club, that deal is going to get unpicked. And where that gets us, frankly, is into litigation which is going to be deeply unpleasant for all parties involved and costly. The better situation, we say, is to have a proper consultation and discussion with members of the community to work out a legal solution which is viable and a proposal for the land which works. This is not it. We know that this has happened previously in respect to Perivale Park. This is not the sequel to Perivale Park. The legal position here is far stronger in behalf of the golf club, and the golf club is organised and able to enforce its legal rights. All we want is a consensual discussion to secure the proper use of the land in the interests of the residents of the borough, and we ask here that this is remitted back to committee so this can be reconsidered, and actually the golf club members and the people who play on the club can then properly be involved in that process. And thank you very much for my extra 92 seconds.
So, well, just turn your mic off there, Mr. Thomas, but if you want to just stay there for a few moments. So the procedure is, ladies and gentlemen, is the lead portfolio member, Councillor Steve Donnelly, will speak for up to 9 minutes. And then we'll move to questions. So, Councillor Donnelly.
Thank you. Can I just check here? The protocol sent out said 6 minutes.
Sure, I think that was based. You certainly
Well,
don't need to speak
fine.
for 9 minutes,
Fine.
but I'm just it's 1, 2, 3. But yeah.
I know that there's always enthusiasm for me to speak for longer, so I'll see what I can do.
You can talk slower if you wish.
I will. So, thank you for inviting me, and thank you to Mr. Thomas. I hope Mr. Thomas will forgive me if I'm not able to deal with aspects of what he brought out in his evidence to the committee in detail, because they're not things which have been part of a detailed discussion that I've been involved with before, so I can only really deal with it in general terms. I will say, and without wishing to sound unfriendly, that it simply what appeared a kind of a warning of legal morass is not in itself enough to put me off, because I've got no basis to understand where that comes from. There is, and I think Councillor Hirsch started with this, a complication here, which is, who do we mean when we say West Middlesex Golf Club? And behind me, and they sat in the same chairs with the same politeness at Cabinet, are those who enjoy playing golf at the golf club. And as I said at Cabinet, and I'll repeat tonight for the record, you know, we have nothing against those who play golf at West Middlesex Golf Club. It's not the nature of the issue we're trying to resolve here, and which the decision at Cabinet did resolve, subject to your decision tonight. And if anyone has been, in Councillor Gallant's word, going round putting wild theories and speculation, then frankly, particularly the Liberal Democrats with their public position on this, are responsible for the majority of the wild theories and the speculation. So I think it ill behoves opposition politicians here tonight to seek to put that forward, since it has been a self-fulfilling prophecy. There is a document here. It's the document which is the call-in paper. It's got 23 signatures on it. 2 of those people are here tonight to present. Others around the table as members of the committee. One of the parties involved in the signatories isn't here represented at all, and I don't understand why that is, but I'm sure that's a matter for them. But I would say that rarely have I come across a document signed by so many people and read by so few, given the errors, given the misunderstandings that sit within it. Fundamentally, the council is seeking to resolve what is now a long-standing issue regarding us having concerns about West Middlesex Golf Club. Those concerns led to litigation. The proposal, which went through Cabinet, is, in our view, and not only in our view, a best consideration method of fulfilling our objectives without having to continue through the messy, as Mr. Thomas would doubtless put it, the messiness of litigation. It represents good value to us. We haven't, at this point, reached a conclusion as to the future of the land or of golf on the site. If there's one thing worse, surely, than us having not concluded specifically what we were going to do, it would be if the council, if the Cabinet had predetermined at this point what it intended to do. And we'd have heard exactly the same argument, but the other side of the coin from the opposition about it. It's a disgrace. They've decided what they're going to do and they haven't even consulted. Well, we will consult. And we said on the night of Cabinet that we consult, and the leader said that we consult, and I said that we'd consult. And guess what, Chair? We will consult. But first, before the council can consult upon the future use of this land, and if Councillor Ball is typing me down verbatim, I hope he can type quickly, we need to control it. We need to regain that control because unlike what was said, we own the land at the minute only in freeholder terms. There is a lease. We seek to recover the lease in order that we can move forward as a community. We best wish to use the land. Now, I said at Cabinet that I'm sure those associated with the regional park, I'm sure their eyes light up at the thought of this land, because it is, of course, as Councillor Hirsch said, because of its location. That's not a secret. It's not a secret anything more than anything else is a secret. And one of the things that's really annoyed me about the way in which the Liberal Democrats in particular have pitched their comms on this item is the constant insinuation that somehow there are hidden things. That, somewhere within the documentation, the redacted documentation, to use Councillor Hirsch's words, that there are secrets. And if only people knew those secrets, gosh, they'd be against this proposal. Well, I've sat through 2 meetings now, hearing what opposition have to say about these papers, and I've heard nothing. They pointed to nothing. And the reason they pointed to nothing is because there is nothing untoward to which to point. And I don't like politics carried out in that way. So we, in order to do this deal, have to do a deal with those who control the ownership of the lease of the land. And as things stand, because of the history of financial difficulties to which Councillor Hirsch alluded, in the case of the West Middlesex Golf Club, that power sits with Greenford Road Limited. And that is the organisation with whom we have conducted our negotiations. And I understand, it is clear, it is evident to anyone that there is tension within West Middlesex Golf Club as to the direction that it, as an organisation, as a private company, as a limited company, wishes to go. And I'm sorry that there's tension, but it's not the council's problem and it's not the council's fault. And we will resolve these issues first and resolve the issue of the use, future use of the land second. I had informal discussions after Cabinet meeting with members of the golfing community at West Middlesex who were, I want to put on record, extraordinarily understanding and polite to me in a way which doesn't always happen on these occasions. I think they've conducted themselves with enormous credit to the club. But the challenge we have is their difficulties with GRL. It's not with us. And it's not the council's job to resolve their problems with GRL or to intervene as if this private limited company represented a community service into which public money should naturally and automatically be channeled. So I can see, Chair, because I'm sharply aware that I've probably exceeded my 9 minutes now, which I would never have thought possible. Very happy to seek to answer any questions that members of the committee have got, but would urge that the decision of Cabinet be upheld.
Thank you, Councillor Donnelly. So just to members, I'll take indications in a moment and I'll try and take questions in groups of 3 if possible. So this could be questions to Councillor Donnelly, but also Councillor Gallant and Councillor Hirsch. So do we have questions? Councillor Ball indicated, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So the legal point that's been raised tonight by Mr. Thomas seems on the face of it to be a strong one, but I'll ask a question on the assumption that that's not the case, that the scheme would prevent litigation, even though, as I say, that's far from clear. But let's take an analogy. Suppose I'm a council tenant and I illegally sublet my council house, and the council takes legal action against me, and I say, okay, I can sort this out. What I'll do is I will give the house back to the council, thus stopping the litigation if you give me a quarter of the back garden and I might build something on it. I mean, that seems to be what's happening here. So essentially, GRL has done something wrong and it's been rewarded by the council by giving it effectively a free chunk of land. I mean, why is that not a valid summary of what's happening?
Councillor Ball, you're speaking very generally, but you're going into issues that perhaps are contained in the papers.
But with respect, Chair, I'm not, because the public papers say that there's litigation, and that's the stated reason.
Yeah, but the examples you're given might refer to a particular case. So I just
It wasn't meant to. I mean,
sure. Okay, so in which case, if you can,
the point is that somebody.
I'll give you the
okay.
give you the mic, and we can have another stab. I'll just give a moment, Councillor Donnelly. I beg your pardon? You can't. I'll just want to give Councillor Ball the opportunity to fully form his question.
So in my analogy, it doesn't matter what the council tenant has done something that's in breach of the lease. It doesn't matter what that thing is, and in order to avoid litigation, they come up with this wonderful scheme to where the council gives them a quarter of the garden. I mean that doesn't link to anything on
Sure. Katie, I believe you're Councillor's going to respond. I'm not sure we won't be able to take 3 questions because there's not enough space because of that. But we're talking about breaches that may or may not happened. It's not for the public domain. But Councillor Donnelly.
Well, thanks, Shane. And Katie Smith, the Assistant Director of Corporate Property, may be able to say this, will certainly be able to say this in a more professional way than I. But the point is, the analogy is hopeless and does not stand up. You know, there are several layers missing from that analogy in terms of dramatis personae in the little adventure that Councillor Ball lines up. It is almost impossible to comment on the analogy because it doesn't stand. It doesn't stand up. It is not analogous. It is not analogous. This is not simply a matter of a discussion between ourselves and a leaseholder and an agreement being made without anything else having happened. You know, ownership of the lease has changed in this case, and GRL have no part in any previous concerns or complaints that council might have had. What they have done is they have inherited a situation and they are engaged, as we are, in a negotiation to resolve the history and lay out a way forward for the future. Anything else you say, Katie?
The council is unable to comment in detail over the ongoing litigation. However, the ongoing litigation does make no reference to GRL. That is in the public domain. So the comment about GRL having done something incorrect and benefiting doesn't match up to that statement.
Okay. Thank you,
Very
Councillor Ball.
briefly,
Yeah.
I mean, I think the point is that the reason you're negotiating with GRL is because they control the golf course, the golf club, sorry, you know, by virtue of the arrangement they've entered into. So surely that they as a party are completely involved in this litigation.
Well, I mean,
Well,
that's a yes or no, I
here's the
guess.
point. We're negotiating with them because it's the only reason we're negotiating with them. If they didn't own it, then we'd hardly be in discussion with them. And in terms of your analogy, the ownership, if not the occupancy of the lease, would have changed. And in your analogy, you didn't do that. So there are clearly more characters involved in this. The GRL's position is not the same as the leaseholder of a property, of a flat, or whatever. I normally declare an interest when leaseholders of flats are declared. It's not the same. An attempt to squeeze the situation into that analogy simply doesn't hold water.
I've got indications from Councillor Rice and Councillor Wesson. Councillor Rice, and I've got Councillor Mower as well.
Right, thank you, Chair. Can I just ask, please, about what are the statutory requirements in terms of consultation with members of the golf club and also residents of the Golf Links estate? Because I know that's something that's been alluded to. And also can I ask about what thought has been put into the costs of maintenance of the land should the deal go through as we intend, and what's going to happen next year, because very large figures have been put around this evening. So I'm just wondering if we can get some kind of clarity on that, please. Thank you.
And I'll try and get Councillor Wesson as well. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Chair. Just wanted to start off by saying how grateful I am to Mr. Thomas and members of the Golf Club for attending and speaking at the meeting this evening. Councillor Donnelly, I think it's important for this committee to be clear on the precise nature of the Cabinet decision, because that's crucial to the consideration of the issues as part of the call-in process. So I just have one simple question for clarification, please. Can you clarify what this decision does, and importantly, what it does not do in relation to any future decisions about the site?
Yes, Councillor Donnelly, you'd like to take those two, please.
Thank you. Again, I'm open to supplementary information from colleagues. I think, boiling it down, Councillor Rice, I don't believe we have obligations of consultation to those who play golf at the site because they play golf at the site. We are in a commercial negotiation with the controlling interest of a limited company. And that's it. That's it. We don't have an obligation, a statutory obligation beyond that, unless I have misunderstood. Yeah.
So I can help clarify that. So in terms of the decision that's on the table, which I think Councillor Donnelly will come back to what it is and what it isn't, in relation to the transactions that are included for consideration in the decision that was taken at Cabinet, there is a requirement for a section 123 notice that was mentioned at the meeting, and it's mentioned in the documentation, and that's because it relates to transactional activity, so relating to the lease, sorry. So that's one requirement. That's not necessarily with the golf club or the golf links, but it's in relation to the public. In relation to your next question, golf and golf links consultation in the future, which I think is what you're maybe more interested in, I think that Councillor Donnelly will probably talk about that again in a second. And then you asked about the cost of maintenance. So if, as the decision is intended to return the land to the council in October 2027, so in a little over a year, that is when the ongoing cost of maintenance would return to the council, not before then, as long as everything proceeds as per the documentation. We are aware that it's possible, depending on what would happen at that time, that there would be ongoing cost of maintenance, and that would be considered at the next point in time, over the next year or so, that we would need to consider that. Would you like to talk about the what the cabinet isn't?
Cabinet decision is a narrow decision regarding the recouping of the lease. And I think we sought, and I said on the night, it's quite a dry paper when you boil it down and without the restricted appendices. But we sought to, by way of, and I certainly sought by way of clarification, to make sure it was understood that what I said in my introduction, that we haven't made a decision. The reason we haven't made a decision is, one, we're not ready to make a decision. Two, be inappropriate to make a decision at this time. And three, there's a broader community whose views we certainly want to hear in piecing together our own thoughts for plans for the future use of the land.
It was Councillor Moher, then Councillor Al-Hosha. Councillor Moher.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Donnelly, the council acknowledges that it will inherit maintenance responsibilities for the golf course from October 2027. Can you explain why the council wants to incur the cost of £200,000 per year that's currently borne by the club, and what is the financial justification for this? And thirdly, do you agree that this is not good value for money for the ratepayers of Ealing?
One moment, Councillor, and Councillor Al-Hosha.
Thank you so much. Thanks. As I just hear now from what you say, that there is no obligation for consultation, which is very surprising in any public case. What about the locals in the surrounding who live around, and the local businesses that could be potentially affected as a result? From what we hear and what we know in public work, meaningful local engagement should have locals at the heart of this decision making. And for clarity, it seems that the case was more focused on solving the litigation, but I think part of that should also demonstrate how we deliver long-term value for the locals and the surroundings of that area. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Councillor Donnelly.
Working backwards, Councillor Moe, no, I don't agree. You might be astonished to hear I don't agree that the proposal doesn't represent good value for money. We clearly, in putting together a proposal like this, have to take into account the longer term consequences. But there are short, there are medium, there are long term consequences here. we've talked about them. How the cost of maintaining this land long term will ultimately be conditioned by what use the land is given to. If we make change in the land, then there'll be a change in the type of maintenance that would be involved. But I don't think that what you've said represents a basis for us not to be engaged in these discussions or to make such an agreement, which does represent a good consideration for the council. On the point about consultation, I was quite rightly corrected around the broader consultation around Section 123 of the Local Government Act 1972, which is, I'm sure, bedside reading for all of you now. There is a requirement for us to make more broadly known that we have this intention, but it's not a specific requirement to engage with the members of the golf club or the golf club as an entity that plays golf, as opposed to the golf club that's a limited company.
Okay, I've got Councillor Ryan. Use your mic, please. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Donnelly, I appreciate the resolve not to predetermine any future use of the land for all the reasons you've explained. But could you speak a little bit about what the process might be to determine the use of the land recovered, to the council?
Councillor Mahmood, if you wanted to ask your question as well.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, thank you, Chair. Councillor Donnelly, I just wanted to know, through your Chair with your team, what sort of timeline we are looking for the whole procedure, roughly. I'm not holding you, but I just wanted to know where we will start the journey. So what sort of timeline we are looking for the whole procedure and getting our land back?
Would it be fair to say you're looking for a timeline on the conveyancing, so like exchange of contracts and completion? Yeah.
Well, I will. Katie will doubtless have more to say after that, but as soon as possible in terms of the completion of the transaction. I mean, it goes without saying. In terms of Councillor Ryan's question, in a sense, in the world of portfolio responsibilities, I'll kind of hand this on to my colleagues who deal with the issue with our leisure, with our parks, with our use of open space, and it will be for them to piece together that, and I will have a loyal supporting role as always, but it will move from being financially transactional to being connected with our commitments around lifestyle and leisure, and how we as a borough make the best use of such open space as we are lucky enough to have in the largest city in Western Europe.
Oh, sorry, thank you. In terms of the question you had around the timeline, so if the decision proceeds as per what was agreed at Cabinet a couple of weeks ago, then we'll be looking to enter into the agreements later on in this calendar year, so in 2026. That's the documentation related in the Cabinet briefing around the land holding and land related transactions. In terms of the long-term future and the consultation, if that's what you were hoping for, I think Councillor O'Donnell's just answered that, but we would be looking to begin that prior to the expiry of the short-term lease in 2027.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Councillor Donnelly. Thank you, members. I did have an indication from Councillor. No, I'll go to Councillor Jay first because she hasn't asked a question. That's the procedure. Then we'll come back for you for a second one. Councillor Jay.
Thank you, Chair. I had two questions really, but first of all, I wanted just to say I can completely see why the council may want to enter into an agreement to bring this to a close, and I think the reasons that you've outlined, Councillor Donnelly, are very clear, and so thank you for that. But I did have two questions, really in relation to the value of the acreage, the 2.27 that the council will effectively relinquish, and whether or not the value of that land is greater than the cost of any litigation, ongoing litigation that we'll go into. I'd quite like to get some kind of assessment of where we land with that. And also my second part is in terms of the overage clause. Do we have a sense of how that overage clause is calculated? Sorry, Chair, I do have a third question. Just to Councillor Hirsch's point, I think in your statement earlier you talked about the golf club moving to profitability, because it was my understanding that they'd gone into liquidation. Okay, so I don't think we've seen any accounts to prove that they are profitable, because actually they've gone into liquidation. So I'm not sure how they've gone from a place of being in liquidation and all of a sudden they're profitable. Mm-hmm.
Okay, what I propose to do
Chair.
is, Councillor Donny, you obviously there was a question to Councillor Hirsch, so please don't answer that. If you just answer the questions that you were asked. Thank you.
I don't think you can answer the questions because they're in the paper.
I would not deny Councillor Hirsch the pleasure of answering it. I don't think. I think the questions about land value sit very much within the restricted papers. I think one can draw one's own conclusions, but you know, you have the information in front of you in terms of the restricted papers. All I'll say in general about overage is, as a principle, it is a proper thing for councils to put in place to take account of potential changing future circumstances, and that's what we have sought to do.
Councillor Donny, before we give Councillor Hirsch the opportunity to answer, do you want to pass comment on the question to Councillor Hirsch? I'm rephrasing it.
I don't.
Fine. Okay. Councillor Jay, did you want to ask a question of Councillor Hirsch specifically? If you want to restate it, that would be helpful to us.
Yes, of course, Chair. Thank you. Councillor Hirsch, just to bring my question to you again, just in relation to the statement that you made and the profitability of the golf club course, because actually the information that we have received stated that the golf course had gone into liquidation. So it is my understanding that when a business goes into liquidation, they are not profitable, they are not viable. So I'm interested to see what evidence you have to confirm that they are viable. Thank you.
Councillor Hirsch.
The club went into administration in 2019, but the debt was paid, so that doesn't exist anymore. So so the slate is clean, so to speak. So the debt doesn't exist anymore because it's been paid by GLR.
But that doesn't make it a profitable business.
Yeah, I mean that means that it doesn't talk about profitability. I mean we don't have any evidence before us. We don't have any evidence before
So Chair, sorry Chair, I just wanted to make the point that means then that the business is not profitable because we have not seen any evidence to the contrary.
Well, we don't know.
Don't know.
Yeah.
Well,
and Councillor Hirsch stating it doesn't mean her acclamation doesn't demonstrate it. It's just an utterance.
Thank
you. Thank you, Councillor Jay. Councillor Moa, you had a further question.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Donnelly, can you confirm how much of West Middlesex golf course land is intended for inclusion in the West London Regional Park once it falls under the remit of the council from October 2027?
Sorry, Chair, have I dreamt the intervening 49 minutes? I think I've been as clear as possible, haven't I? Haven't I been clear that I was clear at Cabinet, and I'm clear tonight that no decision has been made about the future of the land. And therefore, axiomatically, no decision's been made about what proportion of the land will have any particular use.
Thank you, Councillor Donnelly. Got some indications here. Just bear in mind that Councillor Donnelly's repeating himself. Councillor Al-Hasha.
Yeah, it's more of a follow-up question in relation to the consultation, because that's what worries me most is in relation to the public. So and I'm sort of gathering from your answers, as this is an open space owned by public and returning to public, then accordingly the matter is not only between two businesses as we move forward. So wider consultation should be held before options are narrowed down, not afterwards. And as a result, for clarity, for the benefit of everybody, what is stopping us from doing a full consultation before decision making? Thank you.
Councillor Donnelly.
I believe consultation that we've engaged in through our statutory responsibility is appropriate, is proportionate, and there's no value to be had in seeking to invent an unprofitable and unnecessary extra layer of consultation.
Okay, I'm looking around the room. I've got nobody indicating to ask questions. Thank you. So the procedure here is the councillors who brought in the call in have an opportunity to sum up, and then we'll hear finally from Councillor Donnelly. Thank you. Yeah. Well, you've got the opportunity to. You don't need to take it. It's up to yourselves. Councillor Hirsch.
Thank you, Chair. We've heard about some other legal arguments this evening, which frankly I can't comment on as much as Councillor Donnelly can't. They throw up questions which we can't deal with tonight, but would that not be another reason to review the decision again? As mentioned, this is a major deal which cannot be undone and makes the club extinct. So not to have plans for what happens to land afterwards is really hard to swallow, because the club does serve the public and is enjoyed by many. We talked about the cost, and you mentioned the cost should be relative to what the land is used for, and I absolutely agree with that. But the deal means there will be costs for sure. So should we not also know for sure what the money goes on in terms of benefits for residents? I think there are too many questions still open, too many things which not quite satisfying. And I think the demand remains to actually give it back to Cabinet, give us more clarity, give us a bit more of a, not just short-term view, but also at least a mid-term view. So, we can be reassured that this is the best deal which can be achieved and is actually achievable. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hirsch. Councillor Gallant.
Thank you very much, Chair. I actually I have a great respect for Councillor Donny, and I actually feel sympathy for him this evening because he has been put in a very, very difficult position, as you can see from how defensive he's been about this issue. Now, he's actually said, he's hit the nub of it himself. He said Cabinet has taken a narrow decision about resolving the legal dispute that apparently has been worrying it for so long, and suddenly it's got to do something about it. But this isn't a narrow decision. It's the widest possible decision because it involves a wide section of the public that uses the golf club, that has access to it. And it is also a very wide decision because it's putting the council in a bad place. It's making the council look non-transparent. It's hiding behind procedure to hide the fact that all these things are going on in the background. There are legal issues which we know about, which are contained in the restricted papers, which I'm not quoting. I haven't even looked at them actually. But we've heard about more legal issues tonight. And if Councillor Donnelly, if the council do not know about the issues that have been quoted tonight, then they jolly well ought to have known about it, and they've ought to have taken that on board. And I can't comment on them because I haven't read them in detail, but I would have expected them to have been brought before the council and the council to actually have examined that already. So it is actually it's a decision taken by Cabinet that involves an awful lot of people. It's not just a narrow technical decision. It's a big public decision, and it needs further review. And I frankly would prefer Councillor Donnelly give him his due. I think he would be mightily relieved to have that opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The mics are still working, but are we streaming?
Still streaming.
We're still streaming live, but we can't see ourselves stream. We can, okay. There we are. Aren't you fortunate? Councillor Donnelly, so this is the last opportunity for right of reply to what you may have heard, what you have heard.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to everybody for their contributions, their questions. Kind of in reverse order, Councillor Glan, I would not be relieved. I would find no relief in that at all. Linking together a couple of points, and it's about the references to the fact that we have restricted papers. They're restricted papers in the sense that we can't talk about them in front of the public. They're not restricted papers in the sense that we can't talk about them in front of each other. They've been provided to you for a reason. I have similarly great respect for Councillor Gallant. I'm astonished to hear he hasn't read them, because at the very least, Councillor Gallant, read them to find out whether the nonsense that's being spouted by the Liberal Democrats has any basis in fact. Spoiler alert, it doesn't. It doesn't. And we heard it again. We can't, Councillor Hirsch, we can't deal with these matters tonight. Wrong. You could have dealt with these matters tonight. To the members of this committee, why any restricted paper caused you concern, and you chose again not to do so. And that's, there's no excuse for that. And don't, again, keep trying to insinuate that because documents can't be put in front of the public, that represents some kind of, to use the phrase in your introduction, dodgy dealing. It won't do. Chair, I won't prevail upon the patience of the committee longer, defensively or otherwise. I do think that we should come back to the fact that in order for us to do anything with this land, we must first control it. And what is in front of you, the decision in front of you that the Cabinet took, is to gain control of the land. Everything else follows after that point, but without it, everything else is just so much wind. So please, I'd invite you to support the decision that the Cabinet take, and do not fall for Councillor Gallant's notion that I'll be relieved were you not to do so.
Thank you, Councillor Donnelly. So the procedure is the officers and Councillor Donnelly and the members who brought in the call-in will leave the room, so we'll have a sit in the gallery, and I'm sure they won't be yet. But does Councillor Donnelly need to? Yeah. The gallery will is fine if you wish. Thank you. You're no longer in the committee part, but you can stay in the gallery. Yeah, thank you. but it's available on live stream anyway. So thank you. So yes, just pause. So we've had questions and answers, and it sort of has formed a debate. So what I'll ask, if members want to talk about why the report should or should not be upheld. So if they could, any discussion should be framed in that way. So do I have any indications? Councillor Ball.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, I mean, I can see that this is a great deal for Greenford Road Limited, but I'm still struggling to see what's in it for the council. The litigation cost would be saved if the council did nothing for now, because it's up to the council whether it pursues that litigation or not. And there's a real risk that new litigation will arise as a result of this. If the council wanted to use the land for something else immediately, then getting it back quickly would have value. But what we've heard from Councillor Donnelly is that no decision has been made on what the future use is. If the council don't go ahead with this deal, then either the golf club is now a going concern, in which case it just carries on, or GR Limited have to keep on subsidising it, which either they do, or else. Okay, all right, that's that. I'm informed from the public gallery that that's not happening, so that option goes. Or else, if the club isn't viable at the moment, then the golf club would cease, and that would terminate the lease anyway, because it's leased as a golf course. So in either of those scenarios, the council wouldn't have to give any land away. Yeah, so it seems I'm still at the heart of this. I'm trying to understand what the justification is for the cabinet doing this, because it seems that there's two potential justifications. One is to avoid litigation, and that seems to have fallen at the first fence with the point that Mr. Thomas made, that the scheme that's being put forward seems to be in breach of the golf club's articles of association. So fresh litigation would start immediately on signing it. Or the other justification would be to obtain the land, which, as I said earlier, that might make sense if there was a specific alternative purpose for it. But Councillor Donnelly was clear no decision had been made on whether it would be part of a regional park, and if so, what use it would be within that. And the point is, this isn't a desert. This is a much used leisure facility for residents. So it's clear that the current use is a useful purpose for it. So how do you justify saying that the future use is going to be better when there's been no decision taken at all on what that future use would be? So it just seems to me that neither of those justifications stack up, and so we should be sending it back to Cabinet.
Councillor Rice.
Thank you, Chair. I think a lot has been said in criticism of what's happening, because of the accusations that the council should have done more back in December 2019 when this all started. But one thing I will just say is that I will really say in defence of the council and of those in charge at the time, what was going on in December 2019, I think a lot of people were very busy and very distracted by an unnecessary general election, and so that would have taken a lot of attention away. And then going on from that, of course, there was a Christmas period, and very quickly we descended into COVID time, when the leader of the council and cabinet members were very busy just trying to hold the borough together and dealing with a challenge and an uncertainty that we weren't really familiar with really in our lifetimes really. So I will very much say that that I think that the leader of the council at the time and the cabinet members will have done what they could, and it's difficult with them not being here in order to really justify what they did and did not think about the decision-making process and what plans they may have had in place or anything that would have been happening against that backdrop of COVID. And so I really reject that kind of criticism. And so really, what I will say is that we are just trying to now do something constructive in order to make this work and to bring this deal together. And so just really what I will just say is that that to me it's a case of, well, the deal will go through, and I look forward to hearing those future details when they are available as to what is happening, because I look forward to scrutinising them at that time. And so as things go right now, we should uphold the decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rice. Councillor Alosha.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks. After hearing the different views, I personally recognize the benefit of resolving this long-term running dispute and returning land to council control, as Councillor Donnelly said. However, there are significant questions remaining about the future of the site, which is not clear at all, the future costs and the level of community engagement, whether the users of that facility or the ones surrounding. So before we have that confidence in the decision, there needs to be a greater clarity about this consultation process, the inputs, before we reach this narrow decision. And then probably we can move forward with something sensible. So therefore, I will not support it personally. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Taylor.
Just quickly, just partly in response to Councillor Ball's comments around suggesting, obviously, Mr. Thomas has said something, as Councillor Donnelly says, we can't make a judgment on, we don't know the outcome. I think the decision is the cabinet decision we're being asked to consider, not potential alternative legal opinion. So I think on that basis, we can only vote on what the question of the cabinet decision that was made.
Okay, so I had Councillor Jay.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to bring members back to the reason why we're here, because actually we're trying to return the majority of the land back to council control. And I just a little bit surprised that Councillor Gallant and Councillor Ball can't see the benefit of what has been proposed, and because it's written all over the document. It's about regaining control of approximately 130 acres of publicly owned land currently tied up in the lease, which actually, just so members are clear then, it can bring strategically important site back in under public control. It can allow future decisions to be made in the public interest. Everybody seems to be focused on what's going to happen to the land in the future. Well, we cannot determine that until we have control, which is what we are seeking to do now. And obviously, resolving a long-running and costly legal dispute would be in everybody's interest. And I think David Thomas, who spoke earlier, spoke about not having to pay this through his rate. Well, I'm pretty sure he wouldn't want to be the council to be embroiled in a long-running, costly legal dispute at expense to residents. And also just to prevent some of the uncertainty regarding the management of the site. So I think members just need to come back to the principles of what we're trying to achieve here and make a decision based on the facts and not the conjecture and speculation that I've heard from some tonight. Thank you.
Okay, let's run the room. We've heard the debate and discussion. Would anybody like to move a motion? Councillor Mahmood.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I will propose the motion, Chair, to support the cabinet decision.
So the motion is to uphold the cabinet decision. All those in favour? Sorry, yeah, so we need a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Taylor. All those in favour? And all those against? Just for public interest, any abstentions? None recorded. So decision is to uphold the cabinet report in relation to the future of West Middlesex Golf Course. Thank you very much for your presence and attention. That's that matter. We go on to further item. I'll take just a few minutes pause but obviously I can't take any questions from the gallery, but we're just going to pause for a moment for comfort. Thank you. Yeah, so just a comfort break. Thank you. We'll, I've got 10 past, so we will start the next item at 15:15. We've got a lot of other business to get through. Thank you. Okay, we are live, yes, but thank you, members, thank you, councillors. So we go to item number 8, the scrutiny annual report. So we do, just an indication here, we do have two chairs. So if they would like to speak to their reports briefly, extensively, and I'm sure they'll be happy to take any questions. So, Councillor Haley, you want to introduce your reports?
Okay. So good evening, everyone. Thank you for. Thank you, Chair. Oh, is that easier? Okay. It was a interesting year. I was the chair for the Children's Services panel, and my vice chair was Councillor Oxley. So we looked at different items on children's services, and we started with the Ofsted inspections services to get an update on children's services, children in help, and children on protection. We also discussed, in terms of the Ofsted, actually I want to go back to that. We looked at help and protection, and that's literally meant the standards and the grades of required improvements in schools and how we safeguard our children. We also looked at the National Children's Social Care, which was a big agenda, and we're still working on that. That started with the Family First programme, and we also continue doing that in this year as well. That is a huge project that is outlined by the Department of Education, and that's also looking at early prevention in families and how they can have comprehensive support in early stages, and highlighting significant progress for their families and children, especially families and children who are in terms of SEND, or those families who don't have the right access to support within the borough and schools and agencies and communities. We also looked at one of the things that for me that was very important on this particular was looking at the exclusion of Black Caribbean boys, white and Black Caribbean children, mixed race children, and Somali boys. And I think that was one of the most that we've been struggling. And that initially started from the Ealing Race Equality Commission, and that was a priority that we had to look at and improve, and also work at the other commission, which was 7 demands. But this is one of the particulars that for me was a major impact in especially when we looked at attainment, suspicion, exclusion, and why those concerns are happening in our families. How can we train, our senior leadership staff training in terms of exclusion and inclusion, curriculum adoption as well, and how the curriculum engage those Black parents and bring those community and exam and in the workforce. So that's what we covered last year. If anybody wants to have any question or concerns, we can have a bit of a discussion. Otherwise, thank you, Chair.
Councillor Jay.
Thank you, Councillor Harley. Clearly, this is an area quite close to me with the work of the Citizens Tribunal. So my question was around, and completely take your point about the attainment data for Black Caribbean, Black African and Black Somali children. So my question was around how much have you managed to engage with the Citizens Tribunal, who are also involved in doing this work on behalf of the Race Equality Commission? Thank you.
Were you part of the panel? Did we not invite you? I think the Race Equality, the chair, they were invited to the panel, and we had a thorough discussion on the improvement. They set out a lot of support with especially with the Black Caribbean boys in terms of exclusion. We looked at what the issues were, what the concerns were, and there was an intense report that they left with us, and they did a major work with the local community, parenting engagement, staff training, which was really good. And I believe there's a lot of inclusion office supports which has been in place, which we didn't have before. And they fit into the category that we've had before, learning mentors. So the work is still ongoing, and there's still a lot of improvement required, but it has started. Thank you.
Councillor Weston.
Good evening, colleagues. Just a brief update on the work of the Health and Adult.
Sorry, I was taking questions.
Oh, I beg your pardon.
Yeah, you will get your chance. Just has anybody got any questions? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was first on the list, so I should have really had have gone to you first. But given we're still on Children's Services Scrutiny Panel, does Councillor Weston have a question on that? No, he doesn't, or nothing comes to mind. Around the room, anything? I'll sort of make a comment really. So it's great to see there was a focus on particular ethnicities for I'm sure absolutely fantastic reasons. But I just sort of it's not a question you necessarily can answer. I accept that. But sort of under the Equalities Act, there's lots of other sort of protected characteristics and classifications of people. Things that sort of come to mind is recent refugees, because the fact that somebody is black, white, Caribbean, or Somali doesn't mean they're necessarily refugees. So there's the recent refugees and people from sort of traveller backgrounds. I just sort of want to make the comments that we should sort of have a broad inclusion when we're doing all of these things. That's not to take anything away from what's done here, but I'm very happy for you to.
Yeah, I think the Ealing Race and Equality did cover all those characteristics and all those groups and all those communities that have been mentioned. But the reason, and bear in mind that these are the topics that I chose in person. I work in education and did my own investigation and read a lot of report on the Ealing Equality. And the reason why the Black Caribbean boys, Somali boys, and the mixed race boys has stood out the most from the other groups that we had was the attainment was quite low, and this wasn't one particular area or one particular year. And I'm sure Councillor Adja will come on. She was also a part of that Ealing Race Equality. Is something that has been going on for over a long period of time, and it reached to a point where the attainment was not improving; it was actually declining. And they were when we looked at those groups, they were the most disadvantaged, and that is something that we really had to work. It's just not going to happen over 1 year work. It's a long time program. But looking at, for example, this year I'm also a chair, and I'm looking at, how children also are impacted in their temporary accommodation as well, how that impacts in learning, and they also fit in that characteristics as well. So that's one of the reasons why I particularly chosen. And also last year I couldn't cover, but we also have white working class boys who also are underachievers, part of the equality, race equality. But we're also looking at this year because we didn't have a chance, and that's why we've chosen that particular group.
I would imagine people in temporary accommodation pick up a whole range of protected characteristics. Yeah. Just about in your work this year, you're hoping to sort of mop up some of that.
Absolutely. I also want to be fair and give, as well as we have looked at the Black Caribbean boys and Somali boys' achievement, I think it also fair to do that with the white working class as well in the attainment, and give a support to the families and find out first the reasons why they are struggling and what better support we can also have in that place. And also it doesn't come into race, but when we talk about children in education and homelessness and temporary accommodation, to be fair and to be very direct, it happens to children from ethnic minority background. It doesn't happen in certain communities, it happens to certain communities, and we also want to understand in the committee why that happens, what are the challenges and what are the barriers that we are dealing with, and how can we uplift all those. Because at the end of the day, I personally look at the child as a whole, with their family and child-centered, and I think that's what that's how I want to drive the scrutiny panel this year. So please do visit us.
Councillor Jay, did you want to expand?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just to add to what Councillor Harley has said, the Race Equality Commission was clear. The focus was on Black Caribbean, Black African and Black Somali boys. I think we need to be very careful when we start going into whataboutisms and looking at other groups and trying to expand out. That doesn't mean to say they are not important. The point is the focus of the Race Equality Commission was clear. These are children that are continually being underserved in our schools, under-delivered in our schools, and they do need attention. Now, that doesn't mean others don't, it just means that they need a specific focus, particularly when you remember that, or if you read the report, you probably know that the longer a child of Black Caribbean, African heritage stays in our school system, the worse they perform. And yet when they leave primary school, they're actually at the same level. But the longer they stay in our high schools, their gap in attainment grows. Nobody knows why just yet. There's been various studies done by the Roundtree Association, etc. But there's a 17% gap in attainment at GCSE level, which affects the universities they go on to, which affects their future careers, and on the situation goes. So because we are focusing on Black Caribbean, Black African, Black Somali children, doesn't mean anybody else is less important. They are just the category that the data has shown continually that are continually being underserved. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
On the panel that we have this year for 2026-2027, one of the major things we're looking at is SEND reform, and if councillors could support that, attend the briefings, and really understand. I think sometimes we just think, oh, it's just children's services, children and families, but to be fair and to be quite frank, our children are failing across. Majority of our children are really struggling in schools, in Ealing, in terms of children from ethnic minority, asylum seekers, refugees, or families who don't speak, who's not English their first language, and that is the support. And now that we've got this SEND reform coming out, hopefully, it doesn't look quite good as we hope it to be, but we have to be very honest. But all of us are responsible sitting here. All of us are responsible to read our papers, to challenge and to support where we can, and not just see it as I think some of the things I hate is just all children's services, it's just schools and learning, but it's more than that. It's impacting the whole borough. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Haley. Councillor Ball.
Great. So last year I chaired the Strategy and Change panel.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Does anyone have any questions for Councillor Haley? No, fine. Okay. So can we recommend? Before anyone tries to promote their own panel, can we without being invited to do so, can we invite you to sort of recommend the recommendations? Is that agreed? Agreed. Well, I've got a line here, and then I can move on to the next one. I will go to Councillor Wesson. Thank you. If you'd like to introduce your report.
I somewhat peaked too soon, Chair. Good evening, colleagues. The work of the Health and Adult Services Scrutiny Panel in the past municipal year focused on providing constructive challenge and while supporting continuous improvement across health and social care. We closely scrutinised adult social care performance and finances, recognising the significant pressures facing the service, whilst also acknowledging the progress that's been made in terms of improving performance and reducing the projected overspend in terms of the adult social care budget. The panel also examined the findings of the Care Quality Commission review, which myself and Councillor Steed, as my Vice Chair, participated fully in, and the Local Government Association peer review. We were clear that there's important lessons from both of those reviews, and that transparency, accountability, and a commitment to improvement must remain at the heart of the Council's response. As you'd expect, health services remained a major area of focus for us. We scrutinised NHS reforms, primary care access, mental health services, diagnostics and community health provision, consistently seeking assurances and organisational change that would not come at the expense of frontline services or patient access. We also looked at the Health of the Borough report and childhood vaccinations in schools, and thank you to Councillor Haley's panel members for joining us for that particular item. We welcomed Robert McCulloch-Graham, the chair of the Independent Safeguarding Adults Board, to present the annual Safeguarding Adults Board report. That is a statutory requirement that is placed on our committee, and we asked a number of challenging questions about what we're doing to address safeguarding related issues, and in particular the learning that comes from safeguarding adults reviews. I'd like to place on record my thanks to all of the panel members, our co-opted members. We have a number of members within the health scrutiny panel with lived experiences, council officers, in particular our wonderful scrutiny officer, Anna Marie, NHS partners, and everyone who contributed evidence throughout the year. Their engagement in the panel helped ensure scrutiny remains informed, constructive, and focused on improving health outcomes for residents across the borough. I'd also like to pay tribute to former councillor Polly Newstub, who was a hard-working and diligent cabinet member who always welcomed our panel's challenge. So thank you to Polly. And finally, just wanted to thank my vice chair, Councillor Steed, for his support throughout the year. It's been a real cross-party team effort, and I commend the health scrutiny contribution in the annual report to this committee. Thank you.
Okay. Any indications? Councillor Rice.
Thank you, Chair. Just a simple question. I'm just wondering, looking at this, where is Councillor Weston's name? Because it seems to be missing in terms of just giving the acknowledgement as who was chair of this. I don't know if that just needs an amendment.
Well, let's assume it's all over the report. Yeah,
Okay,
but yes, I think we need to get you in there, Councillor Weston. But if you'd like to respond.
All I would say to that is it's very generous, but it was a team effort, and I always welcome the challenge of members across the panel.
Thank you. That was sort of a question, Councillor Rice, but
Other members were credited, so I just
Councillor AJ.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Ben, for your report. I think that's really, really helpful. My question's around PCREF, because I notice in your strategy there's no mention of PCREF at all. And for colleagues around the table, if you're not aware, the CQC have made it mandatory for all NHS mental health institutions to adopt the PCREF framework, which is the Patient and Carer Race Equality Framework. In your report, I've seen no reference of that and therefore no scrutiny of that. And essentially, it's about ensuring that the healthcare provision for Black residents is on par and is the best quality that it can be. It'd be great if there was something written in your report about that and that was something that was scrutinised going forward. Thank you.
Thanks very much for that, Councillor. I'm sure you'll appreciate there is a whole plethora of important topics that health and adult services have to scrutinise on an annual basis, but also despite my ambitions, we can never squeeze enough of those items into our scrutiny agenda. Fortuitously, however, we do have a spot coming up on the work programme specifically looking at mental health services. So if you would like to write to me, I'm certainly happy to ask those questions around the table about PCREF.
Thank you, Councillor Weston. Bearing in mind it is a mandatory requirement and it's not, NHS trusts don't have a choice whether or not they do it. I think it would be wise to have that on there. And I can, of course, put a letter in the post to you. Thank you.
That would be great. And we will certainly ask those questions.
Any indications? So can we recommend the report? Thank you. Councillor Rice, do you have a?
I don't.
You invite it. Councillor Ball, sorry, I beg your pardon.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and sorry again for jumping the gun. Yeah, so last year I chaired Strategy and Change Scrutiny Panel, ably vice-chaired by Councillor Rice. I'd just like to pick up 4 things which I think were particularly interesting that we looked at during the course of the year. So we looked at Your Voice, Your Town and some other connected communities work, and certainly, you know, we saw that there had been you know, it hadn't gone smoothly the initial implementation, but things were working better now, and we recommended some more scrutiny on that in the coming year. We heard about some really good work that's being done to identify families who are qualify for assistance and aren't claiming it, identified by using data, connecting together different databases to identify people who are missing out, which is actually really, really effective and being delivered by a very small team, and it's been hugely valuable to some of the most that need residents in the borough. We looked at the health determinants research, which is very, very interesting the way it's done, because they have essentially members of the public are trained up to be researchers and are looking at health inequalities and so on, and on a very long-term project. So they're interviewing other people and getting information in an academically rigorous way, which is supported by academics, and it's something that's it's paid for a long-term bid from external funding, but it seems like there is the way it's being done is much more rigorous than anything that councillors normally do, I think. And then I'd mention we heard about the very valuable work that the Race Equality Commission doing, again, Councillor Jay, but we also became aware of some of the patchiness in some of the departmental responses to the demands. So some areas of the council are actually being more listening better and responding better than others. So I thought I'd just pick out those as highlights. So so thanks very much to the members of the panel and also the officers who supported us. And I've now handed it over to Councillor Visitil, who will be taking it on for the coming year, but we're very happy to answer any questions.
Did you have questions? No? Right. Got nothing very just briefly, if you were to sort of give me some sort of key items that you are handing over, what might they be? Some sort of.
So I think a couple of things. I mean, certainly I mentioned the Your Voice Your Town. I think we do need to see how it's bedding in and look at that more. I think also that the health determinants research is a very long-term process, and it would be useful to look at that more as well. You may have more input on whether you think the Race Equality Commission should come back again or not. I'm not sure, but that's probably. Those are the ones I think that aren't standalone. They are things which would benefit from further scrutiny.
I mean, I'll sort of make an observation on Your Voice, Your Town. Sort of by definition, each one ought to be quite different, because you've got a collective of different people who've decided on different things. So what you may think is entirely appropriate for Central Ealing is not going to be. It's not what the people of Greenford of Northolt have decided. So I think it's an important thing to remind ourselves of, is that it is something we handed over to the community for them to drive, and we enable it. But if they want to do that, that's what they decided they want to do. I'm sure you're doing that, but I just wanted to make that point. Councillor Taylor.
Two things. I guess on the last one, Your Voice, Your Town, I know because we had quite a robust discussion during that committee, and I think in fairness that we would try and understand where we was going on that journey at that stage, but because it was one of the early reports we considered. I was part of the Your Voice, Your Town. Other members might have been part of the various town. I know in Acton we had a very good panel, Your Voice, Your Town, but obviously the model will be different in the other places across the borough. The second thing was, and I know Councillor Jay, who wasn't a councillor at that point, did come to that meeting on the race tribunal. I think there was this really discussion about where it goes next, because my concern is we've set it up and I supported it when it got set up, but it's almost ongoing and it has to have an outcome at some point. It's not a scrutiny panel by itself, you know, and you know those objectives have to be realised, or you know, inequality is not going to be tackled, even in the short time frame we have in that sense. But the point is, there has to be an end outcome at some point to that process. But we're not in charge of that. Other people are.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Any other comments? Okay, so we can recommend the report. Thank you very much, Councillor Ball, Councillor Rice. And we have two other reports that we should note. Let me just read them out. I'm not going to read out the report. Economy and Sustainability Scrutiny Panel, pages 7 and 8 of the small pagination, and House and Environment Scrutiny Panel chaired by Councillor Monica Hamidi and Councillor Athena Zizamos as Vice Chair.
And OSC.
Yes, well, okay. And the overarching overview and scrutiny. Pages 58, yeah. So, pages 58. So, can we take any comments?
Yeah, I mean, I was on the housing panel that has been there for 2 years, and it was well chaired by Councillor Media, actually, in all fairness. They looked at stuff quite robustly, especially around the repairs contracts. And I think the officers also learned the essence from the previous year when I was giving them a softball question, not having the data. So it was on temporary accommodation, and they came back a year later and asked the same question. This time they did have the information. So, and I think that's something about scrutiny as well. You know, the importance of scrutiny, that you know, officers do come. Please come with information. You're not going to have information at your beck and call each time. I get that, but the point was that panel was. It did look at stuff quite intense, especially repairs contracts. You know, over the course of 2 years, not just the 1 year. And I think we got some good responses, progress made on that. I think during that time.
Thank you, Councillor Rice.
I suppose this what I can add to that as now chairing the ongoing housing environment. It's one thing that seems to have really come out of looking at what we're going to be doing for the work plan is that there was an awful lot that wasn't actually available last year to you. It wasn't information about issues, even transport as well, let alone all those major housing issues. So it's something that we do need to be addressing. And so it's like what we're looking into, trying to bring that into the work plan, seeing what information is available for us to work on. And just looking at the improvement plan in particular, that's one thing that we were looking at just a few days ago, and just trying to pick out those particular areas in the home improvement that we need to really have a proper deep dive on. And so just hoping that we can have a little bit more of a thorough examination of the work that you were doing on that panel, Councillor Taylor, and surely we can bring some kind of conclusion to some of those matters.
Thank you. So I think we've recommended all the reports, unless we've got any questions. So thank you very much. So that's all recommended and tidied up, Councillor. Sam?
Yep.
Yeah, thank you. So one item of business, OSD work programme. Now obviously each panel feeds in, but now's an opportunity if anybody's got any suggestions specifically for overview and scrutiny meetings. Next one. Councillor Alusha.
Thank you so much. Thanks. There's one, I recognize this was included in page 70 in relation to the change of opposition cohorts. So one additional suggestion to be included in the work plan for the coming year is around strategic public assets. And the proposal is the following. should we undertake a review of management, disposal, and community value of strategic council-owned assets and public land as they go separately? Because we had to do it as a call-in for this time. But if we have it as an activity, at least once a year, then we would have that further scrutiny.
Okay, what I would suggest is if the housing, who's the housing issue is Councillor Rice, how would you feel about what part of that could you take up if you're not doing so already?
I'm not sure. I probably have to discuss a little bit of that offline, because when you were describing that, Councillor, it just seemed to, it felt to me as if we're talking about maybe assets that could be kind of places where people were actually involved in activity, you know, let's say pubs or etc. I'm not too sure if I really fully understood what that would be relevant to housing. So it'd be very interesting to have to speak to you offline if that was something that we could actually pursue on that one. Yeah, I would.
Yeah.
So I think certainly if you're talking about the sort of land and assets the council owns across the borough, that is something that would be relevant to this committee. You know, it's strategic in nature, it is wide ranging. So I think probably I think the best thing to do is for the chair and I, if you want to work up what you'd like us to look at, stick it into an email, and the chair and I can go and speak to some officers and see what that might look like as an item, and come back to you.
So, Councillor, are you talking about how we consult widely with the community on the assets, or the value of the assets?
Yeah, it's in relation to, for example, there is a recurring number of decisions we had to make, similar to the one we had a call in for today. Gano, for example, and other council-owned land. So the matter is, we just want to see how that decision could be the best for the public interest as a result. So it goes with land ownership, it goes with other projects, and how these decisions were taken in best interest of public.
I mean, that sort of couch like that. It seems
not
more.
housing on
It seems more of a sort of a strategy, as Councillor Boots told, something you could how we approach these things when they come forward. Yeah, it's, do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, because we deal with these things as and when they come up, and it's difficult to see how we can avoid that. You know, that we could form some sort of strategy. Yeah.
If I may, Chair, I think if you could
Yeah.
put it into an email, and we'll try and work up and see what the best way to deal with it, or the best committee that might need to look at it. But.
Yeah. Councillor Ball.
Yeah, just on that. I mean, I can't remember seeing it recently, but I know there is there is a document that lists the sites that the council is you know, the assets that it's considering for disposal, isn't there? There is it an annual cabinet report? I'm not sure. There is something that's out there. Well, as I said, I don't remember seeing it recently, but I may not be reading my cabinet reports assiduously enough. But quite often things get added because of other circumstances, like the one we had today wouldn't really have been in an annual plan. So it's kind of tricky. So I think it's very well worth scrutinising, but it wouldn't catch everything, because sometimes things do emerge, don't they, externally?
Yeah, I mean, assets by their sort of very nature don't have a intrinsic value unless you know what the value is if you're disposing of them. That's part of assessing the value of anything. But yeah, if you like to send, you're very kind. Thank you, Councillor Allen. Any other indications for the work programme, Councillor Taylor?
I mean, two questions. I think one is just a point of clarification. I mean, are we focused purely around what happens within the context of the council? It's probably to Sam, I think, in terms of, or
it's not my proposal, Councillor Taylor, but
yeah. Are you talking about Councillor Alosha's? Oh, sorry. Sorry. So maybe ask me the question.
That was the point.
Yeah.
Well, I was looking your direction
That's
actually. Is the point of this just around what we focus on council services only, or council, what is in the council domain?
Yeah, so the work programme we're talking about here is the work programme for this committee. This committee looks at terms of reference are the services that are the responsibility for the strategic director of resources, and then also crime and disorder stuff, which we take in April, and then it's also anything that is cross-cutting in nature that would cut across several of the other panels, or strategic in nature. So there is a focus on, really, because of that, the council-wide services. But actually, if there was a bit of, if you're thinking about doing something a bit more external, that would probably sit with the panels, because they're sort of more themed up in that way, if that makes sense. But if you've got some thoughts about something you want, if you've got something that's on your mind around this, then yeah, we can let me and the chair know. We can have a look and see where it might fit.
Councillor Ball has his. Yeah, go on, Councillor.
Sorry, yeah, I did have something in mind, but maybe it was is the point with the house, but because it is around leaseholders, big issue around leaseholders and service charges. And I'm not talking about council leaseholders, I'm talking about externals and the impact that has on residents. So maybe we can talk that if there's any capacity there.
Yeah, that's good. Because if those things aren't addressed, then all of a sudden the impact is, could have lots of homeless people presenting themselves. Who knows? Councillor Ball.
Yeah. So the previous OSC was going to scrutinise Broadway living, and of course that's not there anymore to scrutinise. But I wonder if there is some work that could be done either by us or by the housing panel on the process by which the assets of Broadway living, the homes of Broadway living get transferred over to the housing department, because it's quite messy, because you've got different tenures that we don't normally use and so on. So it seems like there's quite a lot of complication there and things that could go wrong unless they're handled well. I wonder if that's something that should be subject to scrutiny.
I think the the precise nature of, or the current nature of right to buy, I think is quite important within that. How has that changed, if it has? I think that's. But maybe if you want to put that, if you want to sort of send a follow up, and if you want to include that, if you think that's appropriate about the nature of right to buy. Councillor Ajay.
Thank you, Chair. I think I've probably already said this around the work of the Race Equality Commission, certainly in relation to healthcare, but also in relation to housing and education, and I think that should be subject to scrutiny, and that should be part of our focus as well.
So, just if you could sort of help me, so the equalities, just if you could sort of formulate it for me.
Yes, of course, Chair.
Yeah.
Within the Race Equality Commission, there are 7 key areas. There's housing, there's income and participation, there's healthcare, there's education, there's all these different streams. Each stream is headed up by a chair who, on behalf of the Citizens Tribunal. So it would make sense, and I think some of them have actually attended scrutiny before, as Councillor Ball has indicated and Councillor Harley has. So I think it would be useful and wise for us to include them in the scrutiny oversight that we're involved in.
Sam, thank you.
So the report tonight is looking at the work programme for OSC, but onto the point you've made there, I mean, it might be something worth considering as to whether you might want to co-opt chairs or members of those, however they're formulated, of those various bodies within the Race Equality Commission, to provide that additional focus on those panels. But that's something for the chairs and vice chairs to think about, because I think that would help with the ensuring the continuing focus and drive on those within scrutiny. But that's just a thought from what you've suggested.
Yeah, no, thank you, Sam. I think maybe we just take this away and think about it, because I think for me, I want us to come up with a plan that makes sure that the work that they are doing is properly integrated into the work that we're doing and it doesn't get lost. However, the chairs and vice chairs choose to do that, I'm more than happy to leave it to them. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wesson.
So if I understand it correctly, the responsible strategic director for this is resources. I have been in a number of discussions with councillors where the issue of customer contact and particularly channel shift has come up in terms of procuring new contact management systems. And I know that we looked at complaints previously. I'd like us to look at that customer contact piece across the organisation, because it's something that came up significantly throughout the election. It doesn't sit, I don't think, within the strategy and change panel, which I am on, but I think it is probably a cross-cutting issue. So we'd like to suggest that.
And it does actually sit in resources, so you're right. So yeah.
But is it not the case that your panel strategy and change can sit across all of it anyway?
It depends very much because of the nature of strategy and change director, it very much depends on what projects they're looking at the time. So if there's a project going on it's very internal politics, isn't it? But if there's work going on, or if there isn't work going on channel shift within resources, the strategy and change directorate may or may not be involved in it, if you see what I mean. So it depends what involvement they've got in it. It might be a better place to put it if there's work going on that's been led by the change directorate. But I actually think this kind of thing sits definitely more with this committee, and we have taken reports over the last year or two on this issue, but not specifically about channel shift, more in generally about the customer strategy. So
I just don't want to duplicate work. That's my view. That's all. Councillor Taylor. Yeah.
We're not going to hold debate about this. How do we, if we were doing something like that, how would we get, say, a feedback from our residents at that instance? Because we want to know about the impact. I mean, we would get a report, officers will give us a report about customer performance and telephone performance, whatever. But we're bringing it because we think there's a problem, you know. So how would we find that out? You know, would we, because I know we don't really do comms on this stuff, do we? So I'm just trying to think how we'd generate that.
I suppose that.
Yeah.
I suppose that something could be explored with the cabinet member as well, for their suggestions. Yeah. Okay, Councillor Al-Shah.
Sorry, just one more suggested item for the work program, which is around community consultation, and that is in relation to the concerns that we hear about residents not being consulted when decisions are taking place, especially in relation to major projects. And that is for the sake of consistency purposes in the process of how we make a decision within the council. So if we can review that and see where issues are, or where we have good practices maybe that we can recommend throughout the council. Thank you.
I mean, it's quite a subjective statement, what you're saying there. We do consult, but one might say, if you weren't in the majority party, you might not agree with that. I mean, but suggestions on how to improve that, fine, but I guess that's what councillors are there for, to sort of be that conduit. Yeah.
That one definitely fits within strategy and change, because that's within that directorate. I also know that there has been that has been reviewed by Strategy and Change Scrutiny Panel previously. Fairly recent. Was it your year, Councillor Ball, or the year before? I can't remember now.
Yeah, I mean, some communities are more vocal about how they believe they're consulted than others. But yeah, that's certainly recorded as an ambition. We can always do better. Thank you, Councillor Lee. Yes.
I just want to say thank you to my officer. I forgot to mention Cornelia. She's been supporting me for the last 4 years. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay. Penny has been supporting me as well for longer than that, in fact. Yeah, and supporting Sam. So any other recommendations? Again, you can always put things in writing, and you can send it to to Sam. You can send it to where you think it might fit in with other panels and myself, and we'll certainly look at everything. Okay, covered everything.
That's it.
Yeah. So thank you very much for your patience. Thank you. No other business, no other indications. Councillor Jay.
Apologies,
That's right.
Chair. Just one quick question, just in terms of these articles of association that we've now received, and what do we do with this?
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I
Thank
mean,
you.
So stop the stream anyway. The meeting's over.
Okay.
But